Hey guys, Sherm here, and today I will not be testing the Aston Martin DBS Superleggera in multiplayer in Asphalt 9. Rather, Ra1NMan has given me some races in his 4-star one because I actually don't have the car yet. I plan to at least try to unlock it, at least 2-star it, but I don't think I will try to star it up much above that, because you can get more Batista blueprints by spending the same amount of tokens by not actually going to try to star up the DBS and the Vanda, but by trying to star up the SLR and the other cars in the King of the Fall 3 packs. So that is probably what I am going to do. I may at least try to unlock the Vanda, but I'm not entirely sure about that yet. It is a very good car at max, but not so great at stock. Check out my comparison between that car from stock to max pro, which is uploaded now on the Asphalt channel. And for those of you who are really itching to see my gameplay in a car, well, I will tell you that coming up sometime soon, probably within a week, I'll be uploading my video about the Lamborghini Egoista, which I have gotten 6-starred quite a couple months back, but I've never managed to get to Legend League since then, but I've made a concerted effort to try to get there in this season, and I think I should be able to do it so I can get a high quality, maxed Egoista video out for you guys. This first race here in the DBS has been on Caribbean against 5 Corvette Grand Sports, as well as a Huayra and a Huracan Evo Spider, and we beat them all. You see, the DBS is quite a good car on twisty tracks, and so if you know how to drive it well, you can actually beat a lot of cars on tracks like the Caribbean and stuff like that. Now, on ones like Himalayas, which we will see later in this video, it's not quite so easy because being a more agile car, its speed is not as great. And that seems to be kind of a trend for a lot of cars added recently. Like the Batista, for example, it's got the best acceleration in the game, by far. Like, it's 88 at max, I think, and its stock, it's still above 80, really good. So, like, cars like that are becoming quite prevalent in Asphalt 9, which isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. I mean, it is good for beginners because these cars are just generally easier to drive, they're more forgiving, so it's easier for people to pick them up. But I still think Gameloft really does need to add some of those cars that are harder to drive but are more rewarding once you're able to learn them. For example, something like the, I don't know, Ra1NMan, for example, which has very bad nitro efficiency. But if you can learn that, it becomes an extremely good car. But if you don't know how to use it properly, it's not going to be very good. So I do hope they continue to add ones like those occasionally. But it is good to have those cars that are easy to drive that people can pick up and have lots of fun with. That being said, I feel like it can go a little too far sometimes, with Rush Season, once you get to Gold League, being filled with at least half of Corvettes in pretty much every race. We saw it in the previous race, we saw it here, we will see it pretty much all throughout this video, because Gameloft has done so many of the things of giving away blueprints for it and packs and stuff like that, that multiplayer has just become saturated with it, and it's become kind of boring, I assume, for those people playing them, as well as the people racing against them, because it's like, oh, they're just facing Corvettes. Now, if you are in one of those cars, they're easy to drive. I understand why people are using them a lot, and that's great. I just feel that, and there's not really much anybody can do about this at this point, but there's not as much variety in multiplayer as there used to be when not everybody had the Corvette maxed. I'm not suggesting that anything be changed about that, it's just an interesting observation. In this race, however, there are actually only 2 Corvettes. Now, being in Platinum League, this makes a bit more sense, because there are a lot of A-class cars that are also fairly easy to get and that are generally better than the Corvette, and so people will use them more. But it still is interesting to see just how many Corvettes they are and how good they do. The interesting thing about this race is that there is actually a pretty much completely maxed Huayra BC. It could be completely maxed, I'm not entirely sure of the exact number, but it's at 4,270 something rank, which is extremely high, and we managed to beat it in a 3,600-ish ranked DBS B-class car. Good job, Ra1NMan. Now, in my races about most cars, I like to put a big variety of tracks in them so that you can see how the car does on a variety. And so you don't just see, well, if it's good in the twisty tracks, I don't put all twisty tracks in, because then you wouldn't get to see really how it does on those longer and straighter tracks. So because this car is a bit more geared toward those twistier tracks, I will probably put more of those in this video, but of course there are some on ones like Himalayas and stuff like that. This one here is on Rome, which should be another one that is pretty well suited to this car, and already being in first place, it does seem to be so, just 1/3 of the way through the race. Oh, and before I forget to mention it, thank you for making this car purple. I really do think that it helps help to beat some of these much faster A-Class cars. I'm sure a lot of you may be wondering where I am in the Batista event. Well, I have in fact managed to unlock the Batista. I haven't gotten any more blueprints for it since, but I'm going to at least try to 2-star it so that I can make it my normal metallic purple. After that though, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to try to do with it, because you can apparently get packs for it after you get to like 86 blueprints for it or something, just like with the previous two cars, the Senna and the Zenvo. I think they had the same sort of thing. At least the Zenvo did. But we'll see if I'm able to actually get there with my tokens, or if I want to save them for something else I haven't quite decided yet. If you guys would like to see just how good a Max Batista is, go check out Supersonic's video about it. Its other stats, besides the 88 acceleration, are an 80 handling, a 78 nitro efficiency, and a top speed with nitro around 236 to 37 miles per hour, which does not sound very fast. And for S-Class, it really isn't, although this car, I would say, is a bit better than the Senna, due to having a higher top speed, quite a bit better acceleration, and while its handling and nitro efficiency might not be quite as good as the Senna's, they're still extremely good. You can see all that in Supersonic's video. Apparently on Cairo, 1000 Minarets I think he tried on, it gets about 4 seconds slower than the Jesco, which is not bad at all, considering it's like 80 or something miles per hour slower. And if you think about it, that's just like one wreck time difference. If, say, a Max Jesco and a Max Batista came across each other in multiplayer, and the Jesco wrecked once, I mean, like, it's going to be a real toss-up. So, I mean, if you think about it that way, while this car may seem not especially competitive on paper, you have to remember, cars that have this very good acceleration handling and nitro efficiency stuff tend to do extremely well in multiplayer, as we've seen with the Corvettes, while not maybe so great in events. So if you do get the Batista, which apparently can be done with just a Max Viper, definitely try it out in multiplayer, but especially do so if you start up, because it does get even quite a bit better from stock to max. That last race there was a pretty good example of how this car might perform on a longer and straighter track. It was on Himalayas, and we did get beat by a Porsche 918, which is an A-Class car, which is a faster car. While not quite as agile as this one, it is faster, so it can stay ahead on such a track. And this variant of San Francisco is also a bit straighter than ones like the Caribbean, of course, and Rome as well. Again, giving you guys that variety of the car, how it does on different kinds of tracks, which is, as I said, extremely important to gauging just how good it is overall. Now, the car ahead of us in this race is a VLF Force 1, which can go approximately 239 miles per hour at max, versus this car's 226 miles per hour at 4 stars. So that is why the VLF is ahead, and that is why most of the higher-end A-Class cars will usually beat this one on any track that's more top-speed oriented. But you can still see that this car does very well for itself. It is not a bad car at all. By the way, guys, yesterday I uploaded a video about how to do a ground 360 in Asphalt 8. That video is very interesting, let's say, and so if you haven't seen it yet, I would definitely go recommend checking it out. Here we lost to this VLF, but we did beat 2 918s in here, as well as an F12 TDF, a Corvette, and a P1, as well as an H2, but like, that's a C-Class car. Although, come to think of it, a lot of C-Class cars like the Vencer and Aranera, and probably some more we'll see in the future, have top speeds approaching that of some of the higher-end B and A-Class cars. I don't think it will be long before we see C-Class cars with terrible nitro efficiency going like 230 to 240 miles per hour. I can just see that being something that Gameloft does, especially since they've sort of gone that route with D-Class, with the TVR Griffith and the 911 whatever variant that is in D-Class, being that kind of car that is not easy to drive, but is quite rewarding and can get you very good times in events if you do manage to start them up and learn how to drive them quite well. Now, this car here, it's time for my general review. I've said a lot about it already. There's not much more for me to say. Its top speed is kind of meh. The rest of its stuff is pretty good. Overall, it is not a real standout in Class B. It is not a king of its class or anything like that. That title would go to 3 cars, really. The Huracan, the 911 GT3 RS, and the Apollo M. This one is still pretty good, though. Decent in multiplayer if you can start up. And it just knocked down a fully maxed Porsche 918. I think this car did pretty well for itself today. And Ra1NMan takes the victory. Thank you to him for these races. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video if you have enjoyed. Consider subscribing for more Asphalt, Forza, Minecraft, and Need for Speed Heat content. And I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!